Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so deeply grateful that our paths have crossed. If you're here every week, then welcome back for an incredible conversation. I just got back from a week traveling to Corfu, Greece for a beautiful spiritual festival that honestly really reignited my soul. I went into the experience thinking it would be really easeful and nourishing and joyful, and it ended up being some really deep transformative work, using sound and dance and movement to deeply alchemize any fears, doubts, traumas that we have been holding on to unknowingly in our bodies and beings. And I feel this deep sense of clarity and a reconnection between my heart and my throat chakra, allowing me to speak my truth without the fear, the fear of if I speak my truth, I will hurt others, or I will be abandoned, or it will be inconvenient. And it just allowed me to sit more deeply into the importance and power of speaking your truth. So this conversation is one just like that with Stephanie Kroll, who honestly, guys, her story is so inspiring because she found me in 2020 when she was having her spiritual awakening 2 years ago. She found me on TikTok. And Stephanie is a young mom of a special needs boy. She has really dedicated her life towards raising him. And in 2020, she began asking herself these bigger questions of, well, who am I? And what is my purpose? And she began forgiving herself for past mistakes and rediscovering her sense of self outside of the labels that society put upon her, like high school dropout or single mom. And instead, she began diving deeper into her innate gifts, which at that time she knew she was good with people, but she didn't really know how that would come into play in her career. So she heard about me, she heard about Dharma Coaching Institute, and the rest is history. She is now a teaching assistant at Dharma Coaching Institute. She leads calls in our community. And in this conversation, she shares the exact realizations and aha moments that she had to transform her life. So if you are at a place that you are ready to create a massive shift in your life, but maybe you're afraid, maybe you are a mother, a single mother, and your family is dependent on your income, so you're afraid to quit your stable job. Or maybe you just feel really overwhelmed with all the burdens of motherhood and work and all the responsibilities that you feel like you don't have time to focus on yourself. But you know that you are here for a bigger reason. So in this conversation, I ask Stephanie many of the questions that I know you may have right now of how did you go through those fears? What were your first steps? What exactly did the process look like? To show you firsthand how someone literally within a 2-year period went from a spiritual awakening, and we go through the different stages of Dharma so you can see it in this conversation, but stage 3 in the 5 steps of Dharma discovery, spiritual awakening into now Dharma embodiment and being a coach who is transforming so many people's lives. So if you are ready for some inspiration and some really practical knowledge to see how transformation is possible in a busy world with loads of responsibilities and being a parent, this conversation is for you. So without further ado, let's welcome Stephanie to the Highest Self podcast. Welcome, Stephanie, to the Highest Self podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Sahara. It's an honor to be here.
And the first question I have for you is, what makes you your highest self?
I was thinking about this for a couple of weeks now because I love this question. I love hearing it on your podcast. And, I think what makes me my highest self is when I'm immersed in laughter, especially if I'm connecting with another person, and we're just in that moment of bliss and joy and just present. And, there are literally no worries and no stresses in that moment when we're just laughing together. So I think that's what makes me my highest self for sure.
I am with you on that. Laughter is just the best thing on earth. Like, why are we not laughing all the time? In fact, I used to love doing improv games. Like, even as a kid, you love doing like make believe and stuff. And then when I was in high school, I did improv, and I recently, now as a 30-something-year-old adult, have signed up for an improv class, a 2-month improv class at a comedy club, which I'm so scared because at the end we have to actually do a performance in front of people, like an improvised performance, which I'm so nervous. But it's just because I've realized it's that laughter that is what my highlights of my life are always around. Like when you're young and you just like make eye contact with your friend and you're just like dying of laughter and just like they say one thing and you're laughing even more. I'm like, why do we not do that anymore? So
Yeah.
that's why I like went on Eventbrite, took the initiative, and I'm doing improv.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. I can't wait to see it if you're going to share it with us.
Yes, yes. It'll be woven into everything that I do. So
Beautiful.
yes, laughter is so important. And especially, right now we're in this time that I feel like a lot of moms, young moms, empty nesters, moms of, different ages, and people even without kids who are like thinking about having kids. Like I know for myself, I don't have kids, but it's like that feeling of like fear, honestly, like the fear of like what could go wrong and there being so much out of your control and it really being the ultimate surrender. So I'd love to start that conversation around how can we like face that fear that we have of giving up control in things and like things going maybe not the way that we planned, and how can we find peace and even laughter within that?
Thank you for that question. I love that. And for me, from my own experience, I'm going to share a little bit of my own story with this. There was so much pressure at being a mother. I have a 12-year-old son. He's on the autism spectrum, and I've been a mom since I was 20. I've been on my own since I was 19. And I just felt so much pressure around always putting my son first and always just doing what, you're told you have to do to be a good mom. And that's providing, and that's, going to work every day, even if you hate your job. And we're not told as new mothers, especially, that the most important thing that you should be doing is taking care of yourself and putting yourself first. Because when I was, putting my son first, it was the most miserable time for me. I was drinking all of the time. I was living on autopilot. I wasn't happy. I was waiting for the weekends because I just thought that I had no choice but to just work and provide for him. And I would literally put everything for myself to the side. I didn't want to think about going back to school. I didn't want to think about really just investing in my own self, because I was like, I have a child to take care of and he's on the spectrum. I have to put him first, and then I can, start looking at myself and working on myself. So I think the most important thing for people to kind of just know is that the best parent or just person that you can be is when you're prioritizing yourself and you're putting yourself in that joy, and you're putting yourself in situations where you're feeling fulfilled and you're feeling happy and you're feeling that bliss, because that's what's going to be, that energy that you'll have to show up fully for yourself. When you're drained, when you're burnt out, you don't want to fully show up. You don't want to get up in the morning. You don't want to spend another day living the same way, and like every day is the same. And that was one thing that my son's father always said to me anytime that I put myself first. He's like, you're not being a good mother. You're not being a good mother. And I know that's connected with the control and the narcissism that he has, but I feel like that pressure for especially single mothers is so hard, because we feel like if we put ourselves first, if we, pay attention to our social life and pay attention to the things that we love, then we're not being there for our child, when it's just the complete opposite.
Mm. So I'd love to know, like, what was a realization that you had? You're a young mom, you have this child who's, taking a lot of extra time and attention. You have this job that as a single mom, you need to work. Otherwise, what's going to pay the bills? How did you even like open up to there being a different possibility?
Mm-hmm. So a long time ago, my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. That was back in 2012. And ever since then, I mean, ever since I was even younger than that, I've always worked just customer service jobs. I never graduated high school. And then I became pregnant shortly after high school. So it kind of was just always this focus of like providing for him. And so I always had either receptionist jobs, retail jobs, office jobs, because I felt like that was the only thing I was really qualified for. And with that, it's working full time. It was working like that 9 to 5 shift. And I was so immersed in my job and I want to get a promotion. I want to get paid more so I can provide more. And with that, when my son was about 5 years old, he was actually abused in a daycare, in a home daycare. And that really stirred my world up. There was a lot of guilt behind that of like, I wasn't paying enough attention to him because I was just working too much. And I really felt this torn between work life and home life. Like I can't be a good mother if I'm a working woman, and I can't provide for him if I'm not working. So it was just this constant pull of like, where should I be? And I can't fit. I feel like I can't fit into having both of that. And then it wasn't until the 2020 lockdown, when the pandemic started, when I was able to stay home, but I was still getting that paycheck that I would have gotten if I was working. So there was security there where I was able to just be at home with my son, but it gave me the freedom to just start exploring who I am, because I had lost myself throughout all of the years of one, just being his mom, just really being labeled as like the autism mom. And anytime somebody saw me with my son, they would be like, "Oh, you should work in the field with special needs." And it was just never really calling to me, but that's what everyone kind of like started labeling me as. And I really just didn't feel like I had a sense of identity, a sense of self. So during the pandemic, I just started diving into, trying things out. First, it started with self-care things like yoga and starting a morning routine. And I liked that. And then started diving into, okay, let me try makeup. Let me try baking. I just random things, because I finally had the time to just play around with that. And on top of that, my son was home from school. So I was being his teacher. And with that, I noticed like how much I loved just like sitting down with him and working with him and like teaching, and not necessarily through like the autism and therapies, but just teaching in general and just being there. And that's what made me realize that the path that I was on, because I had felt so stuck in the receptionist job that I was in, that there is another way, there's another path that I could take. And even though it seemed like I was underqualified, I had no experience in, I was looking at coaching. At first it started with like self-love coaching. I was like, I'm not sure, maybe like with yoga and self-love. And I knew I was called and pulled to do something that teaches somebody something. I just wasn't sure what that was yet. And then I started diving into what's my purpose, like diving into your book, your podcast, all of that, and just all of the spirituality, looking into my astrology birth chart, looking into my human design, like really just getting to know who I was and the things that were lighting me up. And that's when I came across the Dharma Coaching Institute. It was like divine timing when DCI came across. And the more that I coached in that space and the more that I was around like-minded people, that's when I was like, this is for me, even though I'm scared shitless of what the outcome could be. I can't even see myself, making more than what I was making as in my receptionist job. I couldn't see myself really, really inspiring people, even though I felt called. I knew that there was something in me that could do that. And that's when I just realized that there's more to life than staying in the comfort zone, than staying where you feel safe, than staying where there's a solid paycheck. Because it's so interesting, because I felt like staying with that solid paycheck, that for sure paycheck I was getting in my receptionist job, I thought that this is secure and this is comfortable, but it was actually extremely uncomfortable. I was stuck in an income that I wasn't making more, but I also was living paycheck to paycheck, feeling like I couldn't really move or get anywhere. So when I realized that there are things about me besides just being a mom, but those characteristics and qualities that I've, gained through being my son's mom can really benefit me in something that I love to do. And we're told growing up that, yeah, you can have the things that you love, but you've got to get a real job. You've got to, be in reality. And once I realized that as long as you're following your path and living in alignment with the things you love, your purpose, all of the things that you teach in your book, it really just opened my world up to all of these different possibilities. I now don't wake up dreading every single weekday. Like, I wake up excited to do what I do. I wake up excited to inspire and teach people, and every day feels like it fits, it's right, it's good. And with that, I show up with so much more patience for my son. And I can actually be home with him without that fear of, if I'm working my ass off over here, what's going to happen if I leave him like at a daycare or with somebody? And now I just have this freedom to do what I love and make money from it, to provide for him. But also I'm here, I'm home, I can be his mom too. So through just finding what was right for me and just putting myself first, that was really the game changer for me into being the best mom for him that I could be, even though it came with risks.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's so inspirational for listeners to hear that, you really had your big awakening in 2020. And that's not even that long ago. And look at where you're at. You're coaching, you're teaching in Dharma Coaching Institute as one of our teacher assistants and soon to be master coach. And like, your life has radically transformed in less than 2 years. And it just shows people, and here you are so confidently speaking, and you lead, coaching calls and all sorts of things. So my question for you is, I feel like a lot of people think, oh, well, she just must be a really confident person, or she's just a good speaker. She just, I don't know, something about her. But who am I to coach someone else if I don't have everything figured out, if I don't feel really confident? So how were you, like, take me back to like 2020, where you're, for the first time really diving into your self-care and your spirituality. Like, what was the thought process of, oh, I would love to teach this to someone? Did you ever have that voice that's like, well, you're not the expert. Like, who are you to teach this to someone? And how did you overcome that?
Yeah. That was going on all of 2020. And even becoming a student in DCI, I was still like, oh my gosh, who am I? I'm not the spiritual guru. I'm, just some girl, just some mom. Like, what do I know? And it was actually when I had a coaching session with Master Coach Fran from DCI. And I had shared with her all of these things. I was like, okay, this is my one opportunity to be coached by a master coach. So let me really get down to like what I'm really feeling. And yeah, I just shared with her all of the imposter syndrome that I had. And I was like, I even watched that video back now, and I see, like, I was so nervous, and I was just so like not who I am today. So it's really incredible to like watch that back now. But in that, she shared with me that she said to me, like, when she said, Stephanie, when you got this session with me, how did you feel? And I said, I felt really excited. And I felt, I loved your energy. And I was really excited for you to coach me. And she was like, okay, so you weren't thinking about what experience do I have? What credentials do I have? How do I look on paper? And I was like, wow, no, I wasn't thinking that at all. And yeah, she just really showed me, because how I look on paper always bothered me. Like, didn't graduate high school, didn't go to college, single mom, all that, right? And then you have all the stigma around single moms will struggle and all of those things. So when she said that to me about people are going to come to you and people are going to want to be coached by you because of your energy, because of what you have to share and what you have to say in your story. People can resonate with it. And that was the huge game changer for me, was just realizing that I don't have to be anybody else except just authentically me. And that's perfectly enough to inspire others.
So well said. Yeah. I don't even have on my website, like, where did I go to college and stuff. Like, it actually doesn't matter. What matters is the energy that you embody and how people feel in your presence. And I think sometimes we've never even thought about that before. We don't realize how our body language is affecting people, how the tone of our voice is impacting people. We don't even realize sometimes that people might come to us for advice, and then we think we need to tell them what to do, because we think that that's what's helping people. So that's why it's so powerful to dive into coaching, because you just become aware of so much nuance in the way that you carry yourself in every conversation that you have, that you're just like, oh, wow, there's a totally different way of operating and connecting and transforming. So thank you so much for sharing that. And Coach Fran, one of our master coaches at DCI, also, I don't know if you knew that at that time, single mom and similar experience. So it's funny, because the things that we're the most ashamed about are those things that set us apart, because they're what make us us. And, I don't want to learn from someone whose life was perfect and they had everything figured out the whole time, because then what is there to learn from? So how were you then able to, overcome maybe some of the shame to start speaking up, because I think what happens is we feel the momentum. Maybe we even we're about to join something, but then it's like that fear, that shame that I'm too far behind. And also that voice of well, other things are more important right now. I need to focus on making money in my job. And once I'm at this level of financial stability, then I can do the things that I love. So how are you able to, even though you didn't have $100,000 in your bank account sitting waiting for you, how are you able to still, while living paycheck by paycheck, make this transition into now being a full-time coach?
Yeah. So with that, I was at a point where I was learning a lot about manifestation, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I just really just got to let go of these blocks, and anything I want is kind of just there. I was just spiritually just ready. I'm like, okay, I can, if I just slowly step out of my comfort zone, I can get there. And with that, I just, I believe if somebody wants something enough, they will make it work. We human beings are just completely capable of anything that we want to do or anything that we want to obtain. And if we want it enough, we are going to go out and get it. And I don't think people realize how basically that limitless potential that you speak about, how real that is. And another thing too is I was really letting go of the how. How am I going to do this? How am I going to get there? And I just focused on my what and my why. And with the experience of Dharma coaching as a student practicing, that's when I could really feel my heart chakra. It was just exploding. And I was like, I love this. And I know that I can help people. I wanted to help people so bad, but I didn't have the skills. Like you said, with friends, I would just give them the answer, just want to find a solution for them at first. But I knew deep down, if I could obtain the skill of being a coach and really just letting them seek out their own answers through, asking questions and all the tools that you teach in DCI, that really just was it for me. That was the what and the why for me. And I just had this mindset of I can't fail. And if I do, it's just a redirection. Because I was just so in that life of, I didn't want to be in the life that I was in anymore. And I was willing to do whatever it took. And then just being in the space of DCI and having that support that I I had never felt before, and all of these like-minded people, and just finding this community that I didn't think really existed. It felt so scarce to me, like people that were like-minded like me. I was like, it's like there's nobody around here that's like that, but it's just so not true. And once you step into that community, into those spaces, then you see like how big those communities are, and having the support of people, knowing what I wanted to do and really just learning about what I wanted to do, because I didn't know at first what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I loved. I didn't know my superpowers. I didn't know like what I was good at. And just learning more about that really took me to a space where I eventually, when we have experience, that's when we get the confidence, right? And the more that I stepped into getting experience and what I wanted to do and becoming a coach, that's where I was like, wow, I can do this. I can really do this. And just seeing the transformations in people, seeing people tell me like how much I'm inspiring them, or just, making a small connection with somebody and them walking away with value, like that's what lights me up. And that's like my soul feels so heard and seen when that happens. And that's how I know, like, anytime somebody tells me like, oh, you inspired me, like I start to cry. And that's how I know, like, okay, that's hitting my soul. That's like my soul really feeling recognized. And I just accepted all of the support and help that I could. Even when there were times like when I had maybe a bad coaching practice session and I like cried, I would like go to my friends in DCI and we would have like a little session where I could just talk it out. Like, yeah, there were times that sucked and I felt like, oh my God, what am I doing? And even after like launching my business, sometimes that would come in my head of like, oh my God, okay, what am I doing? Like, what if this isn't right? But the universe just continues to show me that I am on the right path. Like things are just coming into my life. Opportunities are coming into my life. And I'm like, this is it. And when you have that feeling of like, this is it, I can't even be that person that I used to be. There's no going back.
I love that. Yeah. You said a couple of things of one of just, you were done with living the way that you used to live. And I think that people need to have that realization, because if you're still like, oh, I mean, like, I guess whatever, like I can keep living this way. I can keep hating my life. I can keep hating my job, hating my friends, hating my this. Like, I guess that's just what life is. You don't want it bad enough, like sometimes you need to hit rock bottom. You need to just be like, I am done. I don't know what is next for me, but I know that I have reached my limit in this direction, and it looks different for different people. So you had that just like reckoning within yourself of something needs to change, which is the step one of the Dharma discovery journey. And then you went into step two, which is the self-development of, okay, how can I improve myself? How can I, work on my skill sets and learn new things? And then that dove you really quickly into stage three of your spirituality. Who am I on a soul level? What is my human design, my astrology? What is my purpose? And then you went to stage four. Okay, let me now deep dive into this. Let me learn everything about coaching. Let me actually master this art and the skill set. And then you emerged into stage five, Dharma embodiment of like, here you are now on this podcast that like 2 years ago, like if someone told you 2 years ago you would be on this podcast today, would you even believe them?
Oh my gosh, Sahara, I'd probably like pee my pants. I was listening to this podcast every morning at work, like just like
imagine someone in your receptionist job was like, you're going to be on this podcast 2 years from now. And like inspiring people doing it, And I think that's what's so incredible for everyone listening of like, you could be on this podcast too. Like there's nothing different about you than myself, than Stephanie. It's just, we've chosen to say yes to our dreams, to our purpose, to this like itch within our soul. And I felt the exact same way. I mean, and the thing is about this like imposter syndrome is it never totally goes away. Mm-hmm. Like there are days that even I'm still sometimes like, are these frameworks actually working, or am I just like making shit up, And then I hear like you and I'm like, oh shit, they are working. So It's like, sometimes you don't realize how powerful your intuition is and the way that you're helping people until you hear someone else say it. And then that's what creates that validity And that's why it's so important to practice coaching, because I think that's the ultimate way to build your confidence, because you're seeing in real time, oh, wow, people are walking away with aha moments and realizations that they wouldn't have had otherwise had I not asked them those powerful questions. So that's why, with DCI, practice coaching is such a huge element of it, because it's in that you're never going to learn how to be a coach by like listening to someone or just even watching someone. I think that's a part of it, but it's really by you coaching and you being in that seat of hearing someone like pour their heart out to you and holding that space and listening and helping them, feel safe and connected, and being present enough to ask them that question that they're like not quite asking themselves. And that's really what the power of coaching is. So for people listening out there who are like, okay, this sounds amazing. I love inspiring people. I would love to, speak on podcasts and share my voice and maybe write books one day and speak on stages. But, I just have so much going on in my life right now, so like maybe this will happen like 5 years from now. What advice do you have for someone that maybe they're a self-identified procrastinator?
Life doesn't stop. Life doesn't end for you to start a new project or start a new path or start a new journey. It's when, and we're never fully 100% ready, right? It's when we tell ourselves, okay, I'm ready to do this, whether you have the skill set or not, like going in that direction. So I think that, it's just telling yourself that you're ready, because 5 years can go by, and what if you didn't make any changes? Where could you imagine yourself? Still, being frustrated, or, whatever those daily issues are for you, that's going to stay the same. So it's like, what is it going to take? What motivation is pulling you to stop with the excuses and to just go for it? Because, if I would have, so shortly after I launched my business and then started working at DCI, I went through this like really unexpected, shattering breakup. And it was right after I had picked up a handful of clients. So I had to show up for them at sessions. And I remember just like bawling my eyes out like 10 minutes before I had to see one of my clients. And I was like, I just wish that like my life could be on pause so I could just process this. But that's not how life works. And if I would have known that I was going to go through that breakup, Stephanie last year would have not made the decision she made, would have not left her job, would have not launched her business, would not be, where I am today if I would have just waited for life to take a pause for me. Because, and that's the beauty of just being a business owner in general, right? Is to learn how to move through life, but also be showing up for your business, because life doesn't stop, and we're perfectly capable of juggling multiple things at once.
Totally, because I think we hold on to that stability and that security, and we think that, oh, I'll be safe if I know what's going to happen. But it's like, is that really safety, or is that a box so tight that you're just used to, that you don't know what else is left? If I'm used to living in a jail cell, then freedom is going to be really scary to me, And I think, like you said, it's like life, time moves. The next 6 months are going to go by regardless. And I think sometimes we don't realize like how much time we spend on social media and TikTok and whatever else. And that time you're going to be spending it like either watching bullshit or watching content that actually moves the needle for you and creates a change in your life. And I remember my friend, I think it was her father, her uncle, or someone, he said that he went to law school in his 20s and he really didn't like it, but he went to make his family proud of him. And he worked as a lawyer for 50 years in New York. And she asked him, what's your advice for having such a long career, such a long and successful career? And he's like, I wish I dropped out of law school when I knew I didn't love it. Because I spent the next 50 years in a career that I hated every day of. And I think we probably when he was in law school, he's like, well, it's too late. I can't quit. I'm in law school now. I worked this hard. And then probably when he was, started working at the first law firm, he's like, well, now I work at a law firm. I can't quit. And then probably when he got the raise, I can't quit, became partner. I can't quit. And now here he is, 70 something years old, retiring. And his biggest regret was I knew this wasn't for me at the very beginning. And I wish I would have just let it go. And I think that that's so powerful, because how often are we holding on to things, careers, relationships, thought patterns, ways of being that we know aren't serving us, but we're like, well, it's too late. I already put in this much work. Like, I'll just withstand it even longer. That we never know what our life could have been like. And that's the thing with, sometimes I think people are like, well, if it's meant to be, it will happen. And it's like, no, you got to choose it. It's like,
Absolutely.
not everything that's meant to be will happen, because you choose what's meant to be. And your highest self knows what's meant to be. And it will whisper to you, and it will give you nudges, and it will give you that inclination, but you're a sovereign ass being. And you got to be like, I'm listening to you, intuition, and I will choose that. Because if everything was meant to be will happen, then we would have no prison cells. We would have no one working a job that they hated. We would live in a very different world. That's what's so powerful about us humans. We have free will. And I think that sometimes we negate our own responsibility and limitless potential by being like, you know what, I'm just going to go with the flow and see where destiny takes me. But actually, where your destiny and your Dharma takes you, it sometimes requires you confronting your deepest fears and insecurities. And you've created a whole stack of cards, a whole life around who you thought that you were. And that feels really scary. And also, sometimes it is going with the flow. Sometimes it is just that following that laughter and following that joy and following that nudge. But again, most of us, we don't even follow that either. We just follow what is safe, what is expected, what's the path that's already been paved. But if someone's already paved that path is not for you.
Yeah, I love that.
So yes, I'm so with you on all of this. So any final words for someone who maybe they're feeling like we're speaking to them right now? They're on this precipice, and just that fear of failure is showing up, of like, what if I try this and it just doesn't work out for me? What do you have to say to them?
I used to be one I was so afraid to fail. Because I failed high school. So I was afraid to try anything, because I was so afraid to fail, because I thought failure meant that I wasn't good enough. And I realized that failure is just a learning experience or a redirection to something else. And we're not going to know what that direction is or pick up on that lesson if we don't put ourselves out there, if we don't try, if we don't just go for it. And what's the worst that can happen is, okay, maybe it didn't work out, but you are still you. You're still okay. You're still, you can still live on another day. And if I continued, I was somebody that I kept myself small for so long because I didn't want to look like a failure. And the more that I just kind of leaned into that uncomfortableness, that outside of the comfort zone feeling, the more I saw that me stepping out into that was exactly what I needed and exactly what other people needed to see out of me to be inspired, to go and do what they really want to do instead of holding themselves back. So I love to just rethink and relook at failure as a guide. It has nothing to do with not being good enough or, you're not doing the right thing. It's proof that you're out there and you're trying and you're learning and you are growing.
Yes. If we're failing, we're trying. And if we're trying, we're always going to find what serves us, and we're never going to figure our dharmas out just from our minds, mapping it out until we have the perfect master plan. Then we will only do that. It's like, no, you try, you put red on the canvas and then you were like, let me add some white. Okay, now it's pink. And now let me add some blue. Oh, now it's purple. And you keep finding and you keep inventing new colors and they change throughout your whole life too. And that's what's so beautiful of our Dharma is not just one thing. It evolves as we do. And I think that that gives us so much acceptance around all of the different phases of our lives and not seeing that as a mistake either. Like your job working as a receptionist probably taught you a lot about people skills that you're bringing here, like working customer service is like ultimate psychology course right there, because you're seeing people oftentimes like in their scarcity and their fear, and they feel like they lost something, they want their money back, and every single role you could ever think of, there is medicine there. There is something that you're going to learn from it. And there's a reason even why you ended up there, And if you can take that and integrate that with now where you're going in that direction, that's really where the magic happens of like, yes, I was a hairdresser for 20 years. And what that taught me was the importance of beauty and self-care. Or I was in the military and that taught me, discipline and structure, as well as having that balance of the feminine, or, anything in the world. There's so much that you can learn from. And that's what I love about our Dharma coaching community, because everyone really is so unique and has such different stories and different skill sets that there's really a coach for every single person that's being created right now.
Yes, I love that. And something that was coming up for me just now too is like even the experience of being a mom, right? Like when you're labeled as a mother, it's like, oh, just a mom, not doing anything. Like there's no value in society for moms. And imagine, the person that you are before you're a mom and then who you are after you are a mom. Like the shifts in that alone are incredible. And what you can gain out of that experience and all of the qualities that you then have from being a mom can help out in so many ways. And I see it in my coaching. Like I have so much patience now. I have so much understanding for people's situations that are different than mine. And I just appreciate so much that I am a mom. And I definitely know that being my son's mom is part of my purpose. Absolutely. So he's the reason I am who I am today.
Oh, I love that. So beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And you are now teaching at Dharma Coaching Institute. So if people are interested and curious in joining us for our fall class, or if you're listening to this later, our spring or future classes, head over to dharmacoachinginstitute.com. You can learn more about the curriculum that we have. What's like your favorite workshop in DCI, your favorite module?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So obviously I love the human design because that's just always been an interest of mine. And I also love too, how you teach in the framework, going through the doshas, going through each dosha and how they're related to your dharma and how you can transition into each. Because once I realized that of like going from kapha to vata, vata to pitta, I was like, wow, like this is so simple. It was so simplified to like how to get to the next step. And that, yeah, I love the doshas. I'm a total kapha girl. So
yes. So for you, it's moving into the vata, the big picture. Yes. I love that. Yeah. There's so many good ones. I would say my favorite are probably the newest ones I created, which were using your clients and your intuition in your coaching practice. So whether you are the claircognizant, clairsentient, clairvoyant, clairaudient coach, and how to tell which your client is so you can work with their intuition as well. I love that because I feel like, in the coaching certifications I've done, which I've probably done like 10 of them at this point, I never hear them talk about how you can use your own intuition in coaching. And I think that sometimes we get so in our heads around like, am I asking the right question in the right way and following this formula? And what I really encourage everyone in DCI to do is like, sure, learn all these principles and frameworks, but like make them your own and use your intuition and be in the moment. And, maybe you are like receiving a download for that person. Ask them, is it okay to share that? Because I really believe a lot of our spiritual gifts are coming online, but we still have that fear, that labeling, judgment around it. So working with that, and then also helping your clients see that they're intuitive too, noticing their language. I also really love all of the nervous system work that we've added in there as well. But, in this intuition workshop, I teach you noticing the language your client uses. So do they say, I picture myself doing, I see myself as, then they're probably clairvoyant. They're using imagery. Or I heard a voice in my head after my meditation telling me, or I'm just hearing, they're clairaudient, or I just know this to be true, or like I got this hit. They're clairsentient, claircognizant. If they're like, oh, I just have this feeling in my stomach, or like, I got the chills when you said that, they're clairsentient. So it's all of these just ways you can pick up through the way that people are expressing themselves. And then you're able to then ask them questions to dive them deeper into their own intuitive abilities, which helps them get into their power more as well. So they won't, because coaching is not, again, like being someone's guru and like, what should I do with this? Oh, you should do that. It's like, no, coaching is you helping them access their own intuitive power while you're also holding that reflective glass. So yeah, I love that. And I'm super excited for our in-person events coming up too. Just like the DCI community is amazing. I'm heading to Boston next weekend to do a picnic in the park with some of the DCI students in that area. We have our DCI grad event coming in LA this fall. We have our event coming next spring in Austin, and probably more coming up as well. So just like all of the people is what makes it so incredible.
So exciting. I'm so excited for all of it.
Yay. So if people want to be a part of this incredible experience, learn more about it, hop on a call with someone from our enrollment team, ask them any questions that you have. We have Emily and Nata available for you. You can head over to dharmacoachinginstitute.com. You'll find, again, all the information there. We have a live pod that you can experience that both myself and Stephanie will be on, where I'll be teaching you actually a practice where you can use your intuition. It's a tool on the 4 layers of guidance. And we have our Energetics of Sales masterclass that we're offering, and just so much. So head over to dharmacoachinginstitute.com and you can learn everything about it there. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Stephanie. I so deeply appreciated it.
Thank you so much, Sahara. I loved this time with you and to be able to share my story. So I appreciate you so much.
I am so deeply inspired by Stephanie's commitment towards living her truth. And it has been beyond incredible witnessing her blossom in DCI, starting from a student to becoming a teaching assistant to now actually leading coaching pods in our community. It has been such a beautiful evolution that has also happened in such a short amount of time. And it just shows that transformation is beyond possible when you commit to your truth. So if you are ready to join Stephanie, myself, and many other spiritually aligned souls who are on the same mission to raise the vibration of the planet, but all doing it in our own unique ways, if you are feeling called to step into your own Dharma and create a career as a Dharma coach, then I invite you to join us at Dharma Coaching Institute. Our fall class begins just in a few weeks, October 10th week. So if you're listening to this right now before October 10th, 2022, there is still time for you to join. You can head over to dharmacoachinginstitute.com. You can learn more about the curriculum there, check out what we have in store for you, and then also book a call with someone from our team to get any of your questions answered. It's a no pressure call and allows you to just talk to a human and see what's up. And if you're listening to this later, we will be opening doors again in spring. So again, head over to dharmacoachinginstitute.com and you'll be able to join the waitlist there. And you can find that link in my show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for listening to your soul's truth. Namaste.